All right, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go over to David. David is a caller out of California, and David says the cosmology of David can scientifically present evidence for supernatural and a creator.
Oh, wow.
David, you got Cynthia McDonald and Johnny P here, and we want to know, what are you talking about? Give it to us. Give it to us, David.
Okay, I'm going to skip the preamble.
I don't like preambles.
Yeah.
Words gotten out. Appreciate it, David.
Yeah, thanks.
I
Much
gave
love.
you 2 points on this, Johnny.
2 points?
Before I gave expansion of the cosmos and the fact that Jesus sustains the cosmos. Remember that?
Probably slept between then and now. I barely remember my own name. Can you do it over again, please? I'm being snarky, but truly I don't remember. I'm sorry.
And I would like to know about this, to give me an education. I would love for you to go over that again, please, David.
Cynthia's very busy, so she wouldn't hear, but let's involve Cynthia in the conversation, please. Special guest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'll just rehash it real quick then. The first point is that expansion is really defined by the CMB, but that can only occur by an outside force because there's nothing internally that could possibly drive it. It's dark energy and dark matter don't exist. So, and there's no external elastic barrier against which something could pressure. So the expansion has to occur by an outside force or supernatural realm or creator. That was point one. Point two was Jesus sustains the cosmos, and I talked to you and Lloyd about this.
Oh, it's a while ago then. Okay.
Because the vacuum of space, right, is a zero pressure, right? Can only be sustained externally because there's no external barrier that could, you couldn't even arrive at the vacuum, but it's the external barrier could not support a vacuum, or it would just move around, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying.
Anyways,
but David,
the vacuum of space is zero pressure.
So this is my problem with arguments like that. The Kalam kind of goes this way as well, that you may give like a couple of points about, vacuums and then also dark matter, which we really don't know what it is, but we know it exists. And
know it by its works.
Yeah, sure. And some of the properties that it may display. But then because we don't have like a bigger explanation or even like, more knowledge about exactly how these things work, we all of a sudden like imbue that with a creator, a supernatural being, a metaphysical being. And we don't really have any evidence, empirical evidence, to even say that this supposed supernatural being, this supposed metaphysical being even exists. We can't even point to something specifically and say that is metaphysical or that is an example of something that's supernatural. People can talk about their experiences and that they had and say, I have experienced the supernatural, I've experienced the metaphysical, and et cetera, But, when you are asking them if they could repeat those particular events or what have you, in order for you to say, well, I want to experience what you experienced too. Can you go ahead and show me what you did? And, we don't. There's no like specific methodology that we can utilize over and over again to say that is specifically metaphysical or supernatural. And it goes in the same way when it comes to when we're talking about, the expansion of the cosmos, or and saying that because we are experiencing these particular things, that it's automatically attributed to a supernatural being because we don't necessarily have as much information about how it is expanding. But, and I know that like the best scientists normally say that we have about 4% of all of this stuff that we call the universe and its functionality down. But we're learning more things every day. And the more that we are learning things and getting a better understanding of how the universe works, it always points to a natural phenomenon.
Sure.
So and that's why I have a huge problem with, all of a sudden, like, kind of like imbuing God, kind of going to the God of the gaps fallacy when it comes to, like, well, we don't have any other explanation, so it must be a creator, it must be a supernatural being.
Yeah. David, why don't you respond to that, and then I have a few questions of my own.
Please.
Okay. Yeah, so we do have a way to measure whether it's physical or supernatural because it's called physics. And the expansion cannot happen through any physical mechanism. So it isn't expanding. The cosmos is not expanding. And there's nowhere to expand into, and there's nothing to drive it, okay, unless it happens from an outside force.
Can I stop you for just one moment, David? What specific measuring tool is used to measure specifically the supernatural? Because I'm unaware of this particular.
It's called physics.
Okay, so I'm not aware of anywhere in physics, and I know that I'm not a physician. I'm not a physicist.
Or a physician.
Or a physician. I work in the medical field, but that's not my position. But I am unaware of any type of measuring a tool through physics that actually points out or like specifically deals in the supernatural. Can you be more specific in physics? Because you may know something I don't.
I have two more points that I have two more points that I want to express real quick too. But
is it in response to Cynthia's initial comment to your initial response, or is this a brand new thing you want to introduce into the conversation?
Right.
Well, they're all connected, but no, I will address what she's saying.
Okay, go ahead.
Please.
Address specifically the questions that she had.
Physics measured the expansion. And the only physical evidence that I know for any expansion was the CMB itself, which is in an entropic state at the basic bottom of heat energy. So that's the only place that I could see that a expansion is even defined at all, because a redshift is not defining expansion, because there's nothing that can expand. There's nothing physical. I mean, there's no way a pressure, a heat pressure, or a explosive force could possibly drive the expansion of space unless it had some kind of elastic barrier, and it doesn't. There's just no way.
Okay.
And it would never arrive. It would never arrive at a vacuum that way. Could you imagine a vacuum in a balloon? Come on, that's just not going to happen.
David, trigger warning or whatever. I am not making an argument from unjust argument from authority, whatever. Mm-hmm. You're talking a lot about what can and can't be, and you're talking about physics and stuff like that. And maybe you are a physicist. Can you talk about your work in physics? What studying have you done? What is your depth of knowledge? Give me specifics here. Are you working in a lab somewhere? I've got friends that work in a lab. Actually, multiple friends that work in multiple labs. What lab do you work for?
No, I don't need to work for anybody.
You don't need to work for. So you're a freelance physicist?
I'm giving you a simple explanation. A kindergartner could get this.
Well, the problem with a kindergartner can get this is that now we're talking about a common sense perspective on what turns out to be a rather complicated series of relationships. The universe is not a tinker toy universe. Mm-hmm. The universe is actually quite sophisticated, and interconnectedness of all particles and what have you. It cannot be understood, I don't think, on the level of a kindergartner. So I'm asking you again, what studying have you done? Or did you go to university for this? I want to know.
Well, I told you before, I did 16 hours of cursory research to
Cool.
overturn the last 100 years of cosmology.
You did 16 hours of cursory research.
You don't need any.
You don't need any.
Don't need any more than that.
Now, David, that's the thing where it sounds like you might be a prankster, because I'm going to tell you something. Allegedly, I'm an attorney, and if I were to put on an expert, and the expert were being voir dired in Texas by my distinguished opposing counsel, whoever that may be, and they say, all right, Dr. So-and-so, actually, person so-and-so, not Dr. So-and-so.
Sorry, we don't have a PhD right now.
Yeah. What's your background education on this particular level of expertise? And another version of you, another person who would say the same thing that you're saying, not you, would say, I've done 16 hours of cursory research into spinal surgery, let's say, okay? And anything else besides 16 hours of cursory research into spinal surgery, and the witness, the expert witness that I would have designated as my testifying expert witness to present complex scientific concepts to a decider of fact. The opposing counsel would do nothing more than move to strike the expert. And that would be in a court of law on something like spinal surgery or, accident reconstruction or something like that. I did 16 hours of cursory research in accident reconstruction methodology. I did 16 hours of cursory research into hydrodynamics. I did 16 hours of cursory research into internet, computer security science, whatever that might be. So when you say I did 16 hours of cursory research into physics, can you honestly tell me that you are on the same footing as a physicist working at, UC Berkeley or MIT or Stanford or something like that, who has dedicated their entire professional career to understanding the minutia, not just merely understanding it, but engaging in very highly designed and executed scientific experiments to find, not like, well, we're going to test it to figure out this huge thing. No, they're testing to find a tiny little aspect of one corner, of one nook, of one fragment of human knowledge. You're on the same level as those physicists, most of whom do not get Nobel Prizes for their work or their labs. You're telling me that? Is that what you're saying?
I'm obviously on a higher level than they are, but let me give you an experiment. Let me see you inflate a balloon with a vacuum cleaner. Let's try that experiment.
David, would you allow any person, say for instance, if you needed a heart transplant?
Careful. We at the ACA do not encourage anyone to execute the following thought experiment in the real world. Proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you, friend.
If you needed a heart transplant and the surgeon came to you and you asked them what your expertise on being able to transplant organs, and they tell you, I had 16 hours of cursory research by looking at videos of people taking folks' hearts out of their chest and then, putting it back in, and therefore I can go ahead and do your particular transplant. Would you allow them to proceed?
Well, first off, I would counsel with them and see if they even had any expertise. Okay, so all I got to do to tell whether the consensus has any expertise in this field is to listen to their explanations. And when I listen to their explanations, they cannot support their explanation with physics. And so I would have to go with the person that could support their explanation with physics. And I'm the only one that can do that, apparently.
Wow.
David, when I go to the doctor, I want to have a general understanding of what's happening.
Sure.
Right? But
Yes.
I do rely upon that doctor's knowledge, and I do rely upon the suggestion, not the suggestion, but the evidence that the doctor is far more qualified to explain something than in a way that I wouldn't understand. When experts get into the expertise, okay, I've dealt with a lot of expert witnesses over the years, allegedly. And I'm going to tell you something. I become like a kind of a armchair fake expert for purposes of dumbing things down to a jury or a decider of fact might be a judge. I do not pretend to be an expert in geology, in engineering, in medicine-related activities. If I can understand it, if I can understand the basic concepts of it, it doesn't mean that I can go ahead and do it. I am not an expert because an expert has explained it to me.
Right.
Okay? Do you think that if we had, let's say, we've had physicists here on the show.
Yeah.
And I would love it if you would call back in with a proper physicist, nothing against Cynthia or myself.
No, understandable, yeah.
Right, but we're not physicists.
Not at all.
Okay, but I would love if we could get at some point a real, honest-to-goodness, bona fide physicist for you to call David and to try your ideas out there. Heck, I'd like to see you talk to Forrest Valkai.
Oh,
honestly,
gosh, yes.
And he's not even a physicist.
Yes.
Right?
I will. Yeah, exactly. I would love that as well.
Yeah, but David, we didn't even get past the preface, the lead up to the cosmology of David. Can scientifically present evidence for Tell me about this cosmology of David. Give me the cosmology of David part, because you're rich with substance here, and I want to hear it. Maybe this will be
16 hours of cursory research.
Yeah. If you can convince me that God is real right here on the air, I will take off my wig. Go ahead.
Well, I'll post it in the comments later because I don't really want to take all your time. But if you can demonstrate to me, either you or Cynthia or whatever, you could show me a balloon that has zero pressure and show me how you can inflate that, then I will take your scientific expertise over my kindergarten education.
I don't have scientific expertise,
we
David.
have already said that we are not physicists, we're not scientists. We don't work in those particular fields.
David, go collect this is such a tired old line. Go. First of all, I want you to walk into, you're in California. I don't know where you are in California, but once you walk into Stanford, walk into Berkeley, okay, walk into UCLA, UC Davis, I don't know, wherever you prefer, whatever's
USC,
closest.
Whatever
you want to do.
Go. Yeah.
And I want you to walk up to the dean of physics.
Yes.
Right? And say, here's my proof for the existence of God. I've done 16 hours of cursory research into physics.
Yes.
I can disprove, gee whiz, every single thing your professors are out there on godly teaching.
Right.
And then once if you get a professorship, full professorship, right, with tenure, right, untouchable. He's a made man.
Yes, right.
Right. Then you can go ahead and publish in Nature, or the scientific journals. They always have cute names like Cell and things like that. So you can publish to, I don't know, Quark or whatever it's called, right? And you can go get published. Then you can go ahead and get nominated for a Nobel Prize.
Make sure your published work is peer-reviewed.
Peer review.
Yes.
Who would be a peer review? Kindergartners, apparently?
Because you can explain it to a kindergartner, yes.
Kindergartners would be, yes, exactly. Yeah. I can't make head or tail of this. Give me a 3-year-old child. Exactly. So, and then you would... David, I just don't think you're thinking through this all the way. That's all. I think what you've got is a terminal case of Dunning-Kruger, and what you need a cure. You need a cure for this, and that might be enrolling in a physics class.
Yes.
It may be enrolling in a physics class. It may be something else. But David, I do appreciate you calling in. I want you to call back when we get a little bit more of that Valkai action, okay? So go ahead and call back then. I do not pretend to be a physicist.
I don't even play one on TV.
I don't even pretend to be a kindergartner.
I don't either. But I have gone to kindergarten.
Yeah.
It was a very long time ago. I don't even know if I know how to still color in between the lines.
Yeah.